It was the sound of laughter that tore through me, slicing deeper than any blade. I stood on the threshold of my childhood home, its weathered facade a haunting mirror of my past. The echoes of my family's ridicule still reverberated in my mind. "You think you're some kind of ghostbuster?" my father had barked, his laughter a thunderstorm that drowned out my desperate pleas for understanding. "You're going to disgrace us all. You're chasing shadows and nonsense." But they weren't shadows anymore. I had learned the hard way that these abandoned places, these cursed structures, were alive, their hunger insatiable. They fed on fear, on the souls of the unwary who dared trespass within their walls. I was no longer the foolish child they had mocked. I had shed that skin, becoming something both monstrous and strangely revered. The recognition hadn't come easy. My whistleblowing about the crumbling foundations of our city had led to my dismissal, a slow-motion unraveling that pushed me toward the fringes of sanity. It was in those dark months that I found my purpose in urban exploration, seeking out the decaying bones of buildings that whispered secrets of the consumed. The world had turned a blind eye to the horrors I unearthed, but in the shadows and crumbled plaster, I found truth, terrifying truths that clawed at my mind and demanded to be shared. Now, after years of scorn and solitude, I stood poised for vindication. I had become an expert in malignant urban exploration, my name whispered in hushed tones, a warning against the terrors that lurked in the shadows. My family would see me not as a disgrace, but as a harbinger of dread. As I stepped into the living room, the air thickened with disbelief. My mother's eyes widened in shock, her hands frozen mid-motion as she arranged the family photos. Images of Christmas mornings and birthday cakes, remnants of a past I could barely recognize. My brother's mouth hung slightly ajar, disbelief etched into his features, while my father leaned back in his chair, his bravado faltering. "Look who decided to come home," my father finally said, but his tone was laced with uncertainty, not the mockery I expected. "Mother," I said, my voice steady, "I've seen things you can't imagine." My mother's face paled as she glanced at the worn leather satchel I carried, filled with the remnants of my explorations, photographs, sketches, and the very tools of my obsession. But it was the small jar nestled amidst the papers that caught their eye, a little glass container, darkened with the dust of forgotten places. "What is that?" my brother asked, a tremor in his voice. "It's a sample," I said, the weight of my knowledge settling heavily on my chest. "The residue left behind by the structures, the ones that consume." Their laughter echoed in my mind, that dark, poisonous mirth that had fueled my descent into this darkness. I could sense their disbelief, the way they clung to their ignorance like a lifeline. "I can prove it. I can show you. I hadn't meant to invite them into my world." But a sliver of hope pierced through the fog of my bitterness. Maybe they could grasp the truth, the horror lurking just beneath the surface. I produced a photograph from the satchel, a decaying building I had unearthed deep in the city's forgotten quarter. "This one," I began, voice trembling with urgency, "is known as the Weeping Walls. People vanish in its presence, and those who return are forever changed. I was nearly one of them." My father's expression shifted, skepticism melting into fear. "You're just trying to scare us." "No," I breathed, desperation clawing at my throat. "These places, they're alive. They feed on you." Suddenly, a shudder ran through the house, a tremor that felt less like the wind and more like an echo of something far more sinister. I felt it, the pulse of the cursed architecture I had come to know well. And then, without warning, the temperature plummeted, the lights flickered, casting shadows that danced along the walls. The air grew thick with an unsettling presence. as if the very foundations of our home were shifting beneath us. My mother let out a gasp, gripping the edge of the table as the walls creaked ominously. "What's happening?" she stammered, her eyes wide with terror. In that moment, the shadows coalesced, forming twisted figures that reached out with elongated hands. They were remnants of the souls I had encountered, lost spirits of those who had dared to trespass on malignant ground. Horror and disbelief mingled in my family's expressions as they bore witness to the manifestation of their mockery. "Do you see?" I shouted, my voice nearly lost in the cacophony of their haunting wails. "This is what I fought against. This is the truth you refused to believe." Their faces twisted in fear, raw realization dawning too late. They had dismissed me as a fool, and now the darkness I had unearthed surrounded them, ready to consume. Terror clawed at me, but as I looked into their wide, terrified eyes, I felt a strange sense of triumph. They had branded me a disgrace, but I was now the vessel of revelation. The shadows loomed closer, and I knew that they would remain, haunting the edges of our lives. "Believe me now," I whispered, my heart heavy with the cost of their disbelief, while the shadows twisted around us, their haunting chorus echoing through the air. As the darkness swallowed the room, I felt a release, an overwhelming vindication, and also an unbearable sorrow. My family's laughter faded into an eternal echo, and as they fell into the very depths I had once explored, I realized that their fate was sealed by the weight of their ignorance. The truth is a terrible thing, and in the end, it devours all.